All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, November 21st edition of the Urban Forestry Committee. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting will be held remotely. And we'll kick off our meeting by letting all the attendees in, and we'll start with making sure we have a notes taker for today. We have someone all set. Awesome. And we'll start with committee member introductions. And after that, I will share the agenda on screen. I guess we'll go alphabetical. Ali, do you want to kick us off?
Hi, I'm Allie Bernard. I'm an associate member of the committee. I'm a tree lover and a certified tree keeper. Happy to be here.
Everybody, I'm Breck Miller. I'm the city tree warden.
Hi everyone, my name is Kala. I'm a youth member, Summerville High School student, and yeah.
L comes before M. Hi everyone, my name is Leah Grossman. I'm a landscape architect and one of the co-chairs of the committee, and I'm excited about everyone who's excited about trees.
Hi, my name is Marion, and I'm a member of the committee, and I love trees.
Hi, my name is Michael Hendricks. Is he, him pronouns. I live around Prospect Hill Union Square. I work in emissions accounting, and it's rare that the name Michael ends up being second to last in alphabetical roll call.
It's true, but Vanessa is often last. I am Vanessa Bukili. I'm the senior urban forestry and landscape planner for the city and for the committee. Happy to be here and happy for some rain for my trees and all of our trees, everyone's trees. I'm gonna offer, I'm also the Zoom manager over here, so I'm gonna offer our attendees to be promoted to panelists. Feel free to decline if you're not interested, but if you want to be a part of the conversation more in depth, feel free to join again.
All right, and that will roll us right into resident concerns. So
Tori joined Lid.
Oh, and Tori's here. Hi, Tori. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm going to be offline today. I mean, not visually on the screen. My name is Tori Antonino. I'm co-chair of the Urban Forestry Committee. Hi, everybody.
Hello. All right, and yeah, our first agenda item is is housekeeping. Do we have any other housekeeping before we go into resident concerns?
I can give a quick update on our committee vacancies if now's a good time. We got a lot of applicants. I'm trying to pull up how many exactly, but more youth applicants than we've ever gotten, maybe 6 or 8, I can't remember exactly, and around 10 or so general member applicants as well. It's been really busy time, so haven't done the full dig into that, but we'll be looking at setting up some interviews in the coming weeks or month, hopefully. As many of you have been through the process on the other side of the table, but we do interviews with myself and generally the co-chairs. I was curious if anyone else on the committee was interested in being part of the interview panel. It's a bit of a time commitment with at least half an hour interviews. We are required to interview at least 2 people per position, and with the great applicants we got, we may do even 3. So it's, you know, a good couple of hours of commitment, but if anyone's interested, let me know and I can add you to the list. Michael, are you saying yes? Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Yeah, open up for resident concerns. If anyone who's joining the meeting, if you want to just introduce yourself, that is great. And if you have any concerns you want to share, you can do that at this time as well. And if there are no residents with any concerns, do we have any committee members? Yeah, Michael.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much this is in the purview of the committee or the department, but there is close to where I live on Walnut Street going up from Union Square towards Highland. There's a big, beautiful, I think it's a pin oak. And I've pushed a child stroller over it a lot. The roots are like really messing with the sidewalk. And then this week, I think this week somebody put up a sign that said call 311. We should do something about this. This is an ADA accessible sidewalk. And my first reaction was like, this is one of the biggest trees in the neighborhood. This is really important to keep. Farther down the street, like way farther down, there's already a curb cut around a tree, and or the sidewalk like goes around it. For this tree, there's like private property, so you'd have to do a curb cut out into the street, which I would like strongly be interested in. That would be like my first hope. And I wonder like how does that fall into the purview of this department versus how could we advocate to like preserve this tree, and like a small curb cut there would also probably result in traffic slowing in a street that has a lot of people speeding up in a residential neighborhood. So that's a very like I'm a resident of the neighborhood view, but I'd be curious like what others think and what the suggested course of action could be.
I can actually address this easily-ish. I saw the sign the other day. I was like, oh, that's funny. We are very much aware of this tree and this issue, and have been exploring solutions, but and we are not gonna remove a tree of that size and health. Luckily, the engineering department is also aware of this, and they are able to build bump outs around trees. So if I'm not mistaken, this tree is already in the schedule for having a bump out built around it next year, I think it is. So
Do you-
we know the owner, and yeah, he's reached out before. That's the one.
Is this
Okay.
the one? Yeah. I
Is
saw a
there
very active. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, is there any public facing city systems that show that like this is ticketed and going to be actioned? Just because I think it'd be great for people to know that like, yeah, the city's on it.
Good question. I don't think so. I know there's been emails with the property owner. I don't know if they're the ones that put it up. Things take a long time, as you
Yeah.
know, are coming to be aware. So this person's been asking for many years, so maybe doesn't
Okay.
think that something's actually going to happen. But
Is there any like ticketing system for this? And maybe it's just between the person and the city, so it's not public, but is there like, because I know people can check on their own 311 requests. Like if I filed a 311 on it, would the city be able to say like, yeah, we're actually like, I don't know. If nothing exists, that's okay. But I'm just wondering, the city should
yeah,
get credit if it's.
I know. I'm not sure where a 311 would be sent to. If it goes to highway, they might not know about the bump out. So it sort of depends where it gets routed, and if anyone knows the information. I don't think 311's like you can see the information. I don't think everyone can see the answers to every 311. I don't know of an other ticketing system that would be applicable here.
Well, okay, that's just great to know though. Thanks.
Yeah, you can share with your neighbors at least. Word of mouth. That's always good.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
There's a very long Reddit post where I saw this. So, and I saw people were posting that Somerville does a lot of bump outs. So there was some good news and then some skepticism, but active discussion. All right, any other resident concerns?
I was wondering, I know we talked a little bit last time about guerrilla gardening and how if there was like a lot of vegetation and invasive species growing around a street tree, that you could feel free to kind of rip it up. But I'm wondering now, like when you rip it up, what's the recommended way to dispose of what you've pulled out? Whether it be like trash or plant waste bags or compost. I know with some invasive species, there's recommended like don't put it in the compost. And maybe similarly, maybe you should not put it in plant waste. But then sometimes if you put it in trash, it's kind of like rejected and not wanted. So I'm just wondering, how should we be thinking about disposing of that?
I can start. I don't know if there's like there's no official answer as far as I know, but I think for anything that disperses through seed, where putting it in a lawn bag would allow it to proliferate at a composting facility, I think the guidance is to like bag it in a trash bag and put it in the landfill, which, is not a great thing to do, but better than having it proliferate elsewhere. I'm not sure about if it's like a lot of material, let's say it was like knotweed and you're not disposing the roots, but just the stems. That might be an interesting discussion point. Like maybe the stems would be okay to put in a lawn bag, but roots you would want to, basically however the thing is proliferating, you want to contain that.
Is there any,
Oh,
That makes
Oh, I was
sense.
just-
I mean, that's kind of what I was assuming, but it's like if you don't know, if you haven't researched every single little plant you've pulled up, it's hard to rule out that this will be safe to put into compost or trash bags.
That's I think this is a good question, Allison. With knotweed, if any of that any part of the plant, the stem, that lays down on the ground, that roots in. So there's no safe part of the knotweed plant to put in yard waste. And the same, well, with black swallowwort, I trash everything. But then it's like, well, like a lady's thumb or a creeping Charlie, like just sometimes do I just throw those in the yard waste? Yeah, if I'm not doing like it. So is it an issue of like if it's super noxious, like if it has like what's the sort of cutoff? And now I'm looking at my own practices. Well, maybe all the invasives go, which would mean vinca and any of the celandines and garlic mustard. And I don't know what, Allie, what are you finding invasives do you have any examples that you're thinking of?
No specific examples. It's just I'm learning more about invasive species. It's overwhelming. But sometimes you go to rip something up and there's like 20 different plants there. I can try to ID them all, but I'm gonna be there all day. So I've been just like, I'd rather get to more areas than spend my whole day like worrying about where it goes. But I don't want to kind of be doing something that like the trash system would be upset about.
have we ever talked about creating some mechanism for making biochar? Because that could be a way to dispose of all this stuff safely while simultaneously maintaining the organic matter value of it. It's not something that's very feasible for individual households, but like it seems particularly well suited for me. Yeah, I think for Tree of Life, but I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
I don't know that. I don't know anything about biochar. Tree of Heaven is one I would definitely throw away.
With biochar, you basically just create a low oxygen fire and you burn everything to charcoal basically, and then you crumble it.
Oh, you
So,
burn it.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's like, but it provides both both the porosity and the nutrients that are still retained can be very valuable for improving soil and all of that. But it's not something that certainly in our context, in an urban context, is easy to do in your backyard. But if there were a mechanism to do it at the city scale, it would give us a way to use stuff like this instead of throwing in the trash. But I just don't know to what extent it's viable or if anybody's even talked about it ever.
I just Googled it and it looks like this is happening globally in the world in various places. So it's definitely a thing that happens to manage invasive plants. I'm curious what the scale would be and, is it something you could set up at public facilities department and people could go and drop off their materials? But it seems like it could be a really cool like grant opportunity. But that seems like probably a much bigger project than we'll at least tackle today. But I think that's a nice thing to keep in mind. And if you see it could become a big project if someone found the right alignment of, someone, I'm assuming it would have to be in public facilities department because they're the only ones with a physical, space to be able to accommodate that. Um, so yeah, interesting idea.
Yeah, super interesting.
Oh, and then seeing Rishika, thank you for your comment in the chat asking about how creating public guidelines for much of the common things could be helpful in the same way that DPW gives guidelines for trash and recycling. I think that's a really good idea, because you can go and say, like, where do I bring my hazardous waste? Where do I bring my recycling? Having a similar, having guidelines in that same location, I think would be really helpful.
Yeah.
So I wonder if this could be a either outreach or it kind of goes along with your invasive plant removal guidance, Allie. So I wonder if we can tack it on to that project. It would require a little bit more coordination with DPW if we want to get it on their website, but I think something we can start to think about.
Yeah, good ideas. Thanks a lot.
I want to add that this is getting to a question of something that we really, in my mind, the jury's still out on tree well maintenance. Because if I saw somebody digging in my tree well, sort of randomly taking up my vervain, my sunflowers, my yarrow, I would be upset. In fact, somebody did this past year and it really upset me. So I don't know how we clear it. Like into the untrained eye and just be like, oh, that's just a mess of stuff. And so Allie, you mentioned you're getting invasives out and other vegetative material. I don't know if you're able to spot if you've ever been like, oh, this is an intentional area, or at least some plants are intentional. And I don't know how, I mean, I've adopted 2 different tree wells in my neighborhood that I take care of, but I think you'd have to like go into a document to be like, oh, those are adopted and cared for. So it kind of gets back to like awareness and signage, and some people take care of them and some people don't. And what level of maintenance? Again, I believe in vegetative mulch. I believe in green mulch. So I think we have a little bit different opinions. Of course, invasive plants are another story. So just wanted to bring that up because I think it's something we've talked about, but it's not, I don't think whole scale removal of vegetative growth from a tree well is actually best practice. So wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I do think it'd be nice if the city were to say that these are maybe acceptable or approved additions to trees, especially like sunflowers. I mean, sunflowers can kill other plants.
Yeah, I don't have that experience. I don't have that. I've never had that experience. A lot of what I do is sort of just, again, not scientific, but what I've experienced in my caring of tree wells. So I disagree. And I think we've sort of had these points of like, you know, what experience versus what's taught. So yeah, that's
City side, it's hard to provide exact policy or recommendations because there isn't that much information out there and there are just so many plants. So it's hard to do something concise. The general stance is that I'm okay with people planting in the tree well, but it has to be if it conflicts with, you know, pedestrian access or it is messy and called into 3-on-1 or for any reason, like it may get mowed down or pulled out at any point. Like you don't own it, but we do try to not just randomly pull out people's plants that are maintained, that are cared for, but it could happen. And I think that in general, having some plant material in the well is not detrimental. If it gets, you know, the weeds are taller than the tree, then obviously it's bad. Or if there's invasives, then they can outcompete it. I've seen vines take over trees, black swallowwort and whatnot. But having someone care for plants in the tree well is just shows care, and that usually means that the tree is also being cared for to some extent or another. So I haven't seen a lot of correlation either, again, just by experience of like having a bunch of plants in there and dead trees. A lot of weeds overgrowing onto the sidewalk. It's obviously not cared for. There's definitely dead trees associated with that. So it's a tricky balance and hard to like have a concrete thing to recommend.
Are there plants that we know are better than others? And like, I think in general, like, there are lots of things that are perfectly fine, but look weedy and look bad. And so I think that we should probably in tree wells try to convey cared for. So like I wouldn't like, even if like God, I'm spacing on the name, like the yellow one, the yellow flowered one, what's that called? Like even if that was good, like I wouldn't want to have it there because it would be like as tall as a person and like that would look crappy. But I'm just wondering, like, are there specific plants that we think are like sprawly, not very high growing, known to not, known to be shallow rooted and not, and like generally compatible with most of the kinds of trees you plant?
Yeah, I think there's some, recommendations, and I think we did the pilot planting project, and we have a lot of species that came out of that. So I think a follow-up, could be offering up what we've seen that works well. And then in terms of the outreach component, I was going to bring this up later, or I think I might suggest tabling this to the outreach conversation because I think we do want to get through a few other items. If that sounds okay, because I feel like this is a bigger conversation and something that we've talked about quite a bit in the past. And I think as we do the Adopt a Tree program again, as we launch it again next year, I think providing more information and helping that program to grow is helpful. So if that sounds okay to everyone, I think let's keep this conversation going in a little bit when we get to the ongoing work updates. Does that sound all right? And want to
Yes.
see if anyone else has any resident concerns they wanted to share. Great. All right, so let's move to updates from the city. Start with city tree removals.
So not much in the way of updates for tree removals. The tree crew is still slowly working their way through the list that I sent you a few months ago. We did have a couple of emergency tree removals that were not on that list, one on Tremont Street and one on Bay State. And I will do my best to remember to send you the specific addresses tomorrow.
There's also the one on Washington Street that the MBTA removed,
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
and one coming up for 121 Prospect Street. So I have those on the list, Breck.
Yeah, 121 Prospect was already on the list I sent out,
Oh, great, perfect.
or should have been.
We also had the tree hearing for the Tough Street project. So there will be trees on Tough Street on the future list, but not yet.
Were there any objections at the tree hearing to trigger,
There was one objection that really was kind of an objection to the whole project, not super tree specific, but there's one objection to all of the tree removals, one objection to one specific tree removal, which we actually were able to go back to the planners and preserve that one particular tree. But we will be, sending our recommendations to the mayor for moving forward with the removals.
and Breck or Vanessa, do you want to do a quick overview of like what happens, like the process of what happens when a tree is at a hearing if there's an objection, because it's a Massachusetts law, right?
Yeah, so Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 87, any public shade tree, which is basically all of the trees within our right-of-way, unless they're being removed due to disease or hazard, need to go through a public hearing process before the city can remove them. So we held this tree hearing for 22 public shade trees. They're basically planning to reconfigure the entire street in this case. And so basically in the tree hearing process, if anybody objects to the removals of the tree, then ultimately the mayor needs to decide on whether the tree will be removed or not. So Vanessa and I, as city arborists, will make our recommendations to the mayor, and then the mayor will decide on the final outcome.
Thanks for that context. Any other questions on the public removals? Do you want to move on to the exemptions?
Take that one. Thanks for pulling that up. I'm just gonna read along with you. So exemptions, there's been a few new ones since last month. 17 Russell Street, 15 Stickney, and 7 Bond Street. They're all mostly dead and declining trees. Permit applications, let me get mine open so I can filter it. Okay, filter. Okay. 59 Dartmouth Street. I don't know why you weren't informed of that, but that was a while ago. 146 Morrison Avenue. 11 Auburn Avenue. 36 Cherry Street, 26 Vinyl. Looks like some aren't being filtered properly here, but 35 Richardson is pending still, as is 1006 Broadway, and 57 Heath has been issued. One note, Malik has noticed, we haven't gotten very much money this year. So people are either waiver eligible or replacing their trees when needed. Not a lot of cash, but that's okay. Any questions?
The Broadway one seems pretty significant. Is there context around that?
Yeah, you may remember this, some of you who have been on UFC for a long time. There was a person who came to the UFC because they wanted to remove a bunch of trees. And I remember Tori proposing they turn it into a park. Well, instead they're turning it into a development. So it's a pretty big property with trees around it, and it's being subdivided into 4 different lots. And new housing is going on it. We do need housing, but I'm very sad for the trees. They're preserving some trees, but removing a lot.
All right. I assume it's past the point of action.
I mean, we don't usually use this process. We have never used this process to stop tree removals, just to make sure that the trees
Inform.
that are removed are accounted for and mitigated. Michael.
I just had a question around column G versus K, where it says 33 trees to be replanted in G, but then replacement trees says 17 in K.
So
that
for that particular one, so it's a combination of replacement trees and money. So they're mitigating some of the inches of removal with trees. So 84. Oh, you mean 33 trees and that. Oh, good point. I see what you're saying now. I don't know. That's a good point. Maybe that might be like 33 wood. I don't know what that means. I don't know.
Tree inches, could like 33 tree inches.
Yeah,
And then
but
the
that
rest is
doesn't.
money.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to slow this down,
Oh
but
yeah,
I think
it might be inches instead of trees. I'll check with Malik on that.
I'd be curious, maybe later at the end of the meeting, if we ever have extra time, just talking about the commensurableness of like a tree inch. Like I imagine a tree inch is much more useful in a bigger tree than a newer tree. I'm sure you've all like thought through that a lot, and that's a bigger discussion. So I wanted to say like at some point it would be nice to talk about that. But
Yeah.
happy not to hold this up right now.
Vanessa, given that people can remove trees from their property for a certain amount of time, like, up to a certain size and all that, like, do we have any assurance that when trees get replaced, that the people who go on to buy those houses or whatever, or the condo association can't just rip out all the trees? I say this as somebody who like watched my neighbors take out the trees on their property when they were
Yeah.
still like tiny.
Well, we don't like to promote this back, but yeah, there's kind of a loophole there. There is language in the ordinance that the tree, once planted, has to be alive for 18 months after it's planted, but it's not going to be 8 inches after 18 months. So there is definitely a gap in protection. Don't tell anyone.
I feel like, did this come up in our tree TPO revision suggestions?
I don't think so. No.
Just have
But
to
there's
advocate for
still-
people to
there's-
be better.
There's still, that hasn't been gone through a city council yet, and we're still working on it internally. So, there's still time, but I don't know what we would propose.
I mean, the
Anyone
flip,
have-
yeah.
Go
The
ahead.
flip side is like with my neighbor's trees, like they planted the wrong, like they submitted a planting plan and then they didn't actually follow it. And they
Hmm.
planted things right next to the fence and like they planted a tree that was gonna grow to be, like a maple that was gonna grow to be 25 feet potentially. Like literally like so close that within a year and a half, the branches were hitting my window. So it's like, it's not necessarily the homeowner's fault if they were like, yeah, like we have to remove these trees because they were planted inappropriately. But if there's this loophole, and in addition to this loophole, there's no supervision for whether planting plans are actually followed as submitted, then that's kind of a crater, not just a little hole.
We intend to check up on planting and make sure it happens. We just haven't yet had this time to do it, but it's on the list of things we need to do. I don't know that we'll ever be able to check everyone, but if, if anyone, especially if someone says, hey, this isn't done right away, we can go out and say, hey, this wasn't done right, do a better job. That happens with a lot of things. We can't always keep track of every single little thing, but we do appreciate when people bring it to our attention so we can fix it. Or try to fix it.
All right, do you want to move to fall tree planting?
I have a question, kind of Vanessa, to what you just spoke to, like, it's making me think of the 5 Homer Square property where that large maple was taken down. And I'm pretty sure that the owner decided to do a replant in the backyard. Are you recalling this? Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I remember it.
So this person is an unscrupulous person. This person, the owner, did not get a zoning variance for the property. He's he's been legally sued for fraud. He's just not a good actor. Can a specific place, can we just like, I don't know, like make sure we follow up, for example, like on a property that I am pretty sure will not get replanted? Is there a way to, I don't know, start a property? Like especially one that one had like 50 inches or something.
Yeah.
That needed to be supposedly to be replaced. So even though you might not be able to follow up on every single one, how do we be like, keep an eye on that, because I don't trust that person as far as we could throw him. And
Yeah.
I am not saying anything that is not on, that has been published I'm not committing libel. This is public information, so.
Yeah, that's good to know. A star system, like especially do this one, is a good idea. I'll bring that up and keep that one in mind. I think if we were gonna do sort of miscellaneous check-ins, doing ones where they are supposed to be replanting a bunch of trees also makes sense. And they were gonna replant like 20 trees or something all over the property, so that would get flagged that way as well. But yeah, we're gonna need to, maybe this winter we can hunker down internally and come up with a strategy of attack here to make sure people are following through with what they're supposed to be doing. And I'll keep that one in mind. Thank you for bringing it up.
Thanks.
Okay, fall planting. Okay, wagon wheel is still planting. We have all the sites designated. Wagon wheel, as long as the soil doesn't freeze before we get it done, we'll be planting 168 trees. And then Breck, Malik, and I, and some PISA folks and the tree crew in 2 different days planted 12 other trees. So we're doing our 180 total for the season in a variety of methods. But we did plant with the tree crew last Friday, 6 trees behind the Lincoln Park skate park. So if anyone wants to go visit some trees, check them out. Those are the ones that I am so glad are getting watered with the rain this week. Yeah, and we'll be putting 3 more there in the spring. They didn't have the species I wanted, so it'll be nice and densely planted. You would be pleased, I think, Tori.
Excellent.
Any question?
Um,
You
Yeah, I want, good job. Well done, Vanessa and Tree Crew, or Tree Amigos.
Yeah.
I also noticed that you planted Prospect Hill,
Mhm.
and I think you planted maybe 2 or 3. So if you're looking at the monument, you're on Monroe and you're facing the monument. So there was the Norway maple that was taken out on the right of that, and the Norway maple that was taken out on the left, to the left of the monument. So I think you put 2 trees near the dead stump on the right side, and I couldn't figure out what they were. The tag had not, was no longer there. And did you replant on the other side too?
Yeah, I put 2 on the other side too. And then I filled in the tree lawn in front as well. On the right side, if I remember correctly, I think I put a tulip tree and a black gum,
Okay.
and then a black gum in the tree lawn in front. And on the other side, what did I put? They're all native, that's for sure. I feel like one of them was an oak. Looking to see.
Well, they look good, so thank you.
Sure. Somewhere. Yeah, tulip tree and black gum. Oh, and a pin oak on one side. And the other side is black gum and sweet gum. Sweet gum, not tulip tree, sorry. Yeah, a good variety here.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Who's up for the MWRA?
I put that on for Allie. I did mention it at our last meeting that the Myra Stick River Watershed Association received grants to do planting on private property and public property. So 6 of the trees I just talked about were from the public property side, but Allie's been working on the private property side. So take it away, Allie.
Yes, so this is a 5-year grant. There's about 4 more years to go. We wanted to plant 60 trees in Somerville in private property. This is for the private part of the grant. So we need to identify 60 places to put trees in people's yards. And we could just use the help. We would really love to plant next spring and next fall so that there's still 3 more years of the grant and we could come back and do like a first pruning as part of the grant. Because all the people who help with the grant are compensated throughout that time period. So once that kind of dries up, then kind of becomes the responsibility of the owner to keep maintaining that tree. But if we could get them planted sooner, that just lets us kind of be there for a longer part of the process. So just wondering if anyone on this committee has any properties around them that look like they could really use some trees, or you know your neighbors and they would be interested in a free tree and free pruning and advice on which tree to plant. You know, we can give them the Somerville native tree planting recommendations and things like that and order it for them and then help them plant it. I don't have a survey right now. I was hoping that they would have put together a little intake form where if someone wanted one, they could fill it out and put their name and their address. For now, if you do know something, you can just reach out to me and I can informally put it on the list. But yeah, I just love like your eyes and ears on people who want to put trees in their yard.
I might have some suggestions, but I don't know anybody who wants it, but there might be people who are persuadable.
Yes, that would be great too, if you're willing to do that.
Kala,
Kala,
go
you have
ahead.
your hand
I'm curious if there's like a way we could like advertise it like more publicly so that like it's not limited to like just people like we know, or just so like more people might have the opportunity to.
Yeah, how does this committee put messages out? Is it like you need to get to the mayor's information
We have like
page?
on our website page we can put stuff like memos, right?
Yeah. I don't know how many people see that. But we do. I can do blasts through newsletters. We can tell city councilors and they can put them out in their newsletters. So it's useful to have like a blurb, and something to point people to. So maybe when the survey's created, that's a good time to do the email blasts. There's like the city Resistat. I think it has a new name now, a newsletter that goes out from the city, from the comms team weekly. It's having something like we can have something on there. There's also like the Somerville Parks Instagram
Mhm.
we can post on. And I thought of something else and I forgot what it was. Oh, the urban forestry enthusiast newsletter, or not really newsletter, it's a list. I have an email list. I tell people about this meeting and very few other things, but this would be a great thing to tell them about.
Yes, great, okay.
I might just drop a link to the Somerville social media feeds because it links to all like the Somerville Loves Urban Gardening page, and then also the various social media feeds that the city operates.
Oh, nice.
And the Facebook groups would be nice. And then there's also, just so you know, there's a small but active WhatsApp group in East Somerville that might be worth sharing this opportunity with.
There's
Nice.
also like main streets, like East Somerville main streets and Union Square main streets. They might have newsletters or some way to reach their members. For a lot of the internal city stuff, Allie, if you want to send something to me, I can send it. It might.
Okay, that sounds good.
Seeing Michael shout out Somerville Reddit too. I'd echo that. Pretty active. Great, awesome question, Kala. That was a really good list. We should just capture that in our notes as well for future use.
Yeah. All right. Any other sort of questions or thoughts on that? Next up, we have the Summer Pollinator Action Plan. Any updates there? We know the plan is out. Tori, if you have anything while Vanessa's recovering.
Yeah, I put that on the agenda with an idea that we might, if we had extra time, we might just want to look at some of the pantry cards together. And the other reason I put it on was just to encourage people to spread the good news. So, but I didn't prepare anything for the latter. I mean, the former. So, this can be a placeholder for now, and just wanted to say, yeah, if people want to continue to share it with their networks. I think we've done a pretty good job so far, especially professionally. So, yeah, that's why I asked for it to be on. So.
We're overdue for a species meeting, so I wonder if this is a really good agenda item for that.
Yep.
Now we're in the winter, so we can do inside work. Cool. I'm putting that on my list.
Okay.
Next up is the Central Somerville Avenue planning process.
So I asked this to be on the agenda too, and it's just, I just want people to be aware of this process. So this is what was formerly known as the Summer Nova process so here's a question, Vanessa. I consult with Summer Nova, so I don't even know if I can bring up this agenda item because it's related to the project, but the city is now taking it over and doing a plan for that neighborhood. And there's been charrettes that have happened already. Allison Moore came and did a civic space exercise last week or the week before. So I put it in just to be like, just wanted people to be aware that there is a citywide process now for planning what will be the future Summer Nova campus, as well as other blocks that are not, don't think that Summer Nova owns. So next Monday is sort of the last day of the sort of a summation of things that have been talked about thus far. And maybe next meeting we can have Allison come, or have Rafi come to, or Tom, somebody to be like, this is what's going on, and get our feedback on, maybe it's just civic space placement or something. So just wanted to let people know of this thing that's going on. So I don't know if anyone else has been able to make the meetings or has any feedback. And again, I don't know how much I can speak to it. It's just like, this is going on. People are around to participate in it. And I think we could have an action item maybe for next month, if there's some sort of proposal that the city and Rafi and the neighbors come up with. So another placeholder for the most part.
Great, that's a good flag. I know I've seen these meetings fly by. I haven't made any of them, but I know they've presented to us in the past, but I think that was before this larger planning effort.
Yeah.
So getting a refresh probably wouldn't be out of context. So is that a request that would come from Vanessa if we wanted them to present at the meeting, or could one of us reach out as well?
Probably should come from me or one of the chairs. I'm not really sure what the outcome of all these meetings is. It's hard to keep track of everything, but I don't know if I know there is a public component to this, but I don't know when that public part ends. I don't know if it's after this last meeting or not. So I'm not sure who to invite or what the purpose would be.
Well, so the purpose of this whole process is to come up with a new zoning overlay. And it's focused, the zoning overlay is on it's like a different type of commercial. that's focused on green and clean tech. So not lab buildings, but it's an overlay that is focused on the arts, community centers, and this green tech industry that would then be able to be applied to different parts of Somerville. And so the goal of all this process is to create zoning. That's the ultimate goal. And so things we're figuring out for this project is like, okay, like what's the percentage of civic space? What kinds of civic space do we want to see if we're relating it to this committee? But I mean, there's lots of other things that's going into it, like requiring a certain amount of community center to be in each of this, in the overlay. So it's kind of exciting. And I think it would, where we might come in would be making recommendations on the civic space layout for this project, or offering landscape advice on any green score recommendations. So I don't know, it's a fluid process, but the overall goal is an overlay, a zoning, a master plan zoning overlay. I think I'm saying it right. So Vanessa, and we can continue to talk about it, and Leah, to see how best, if it's going to be something city staff would like to do, if it's going to be a combination of like people in OSPCD. So
Okay. I think, talking about this as a concept, in my understanding, don't think there's a conflict of interest, but in the recommendation part, probably, Tori, you'd have to recuse yourself.
that would make sense.
I have a question, a thought, just because I also echo Vanessa's sentiment that it's been hard to follow this and there's lots of phases and it's complicated. I'm curious, like what we would see like as people, as the Urban Forestry Committee, really what our role in this would be. I ask that in an open-ended way, like would we be able to like advocate for certain plantings, for green roofs? You mentioned a green score, like it's great to be included, but do the people who have been on this committee longer than me see a real point where we would want to make a recommendation or have influence, just because I know this is a complicated process? Or does the Urban Forestry Committee like not really have an angle in here? I'd be curious what people think.
My sense is, for the overlay district, it doesn't dive into the nitty gritty, like what species to plant or anything like that. I hadn't even considered the green score component, but it probably wouldn't like change the whole green score process, just what the recommended score is for the district. So it just sort of changes. An overlay district will determine like how tall the buildings can be and where those tall buildings would be placed. It can give a little bit of wiggle room in that, and you have to have X percentage of civic space in this overlay district, and it can be prescriptive as to where-ish that civic space has to be. But there's caveats, so like it's really complicated to know, and I don't know, I feel like, I got an hour-long speech about this and I still don't barely know what to recommend, so I don't know that it's a helpful thing for the UFC to weigh in on with, having 20 minutes or 30 minutes to try to understand what this even is. But perhaps just as an informative thing, it could be, a learning experience. But that's my sense, because I don't really get zoning that well. Maybe it's just my brain doesn't work this way.
Yeah, I need to do some more research on this, but I feel like as advocates for successful open space, things that we could do at this high level, which again, I would also have to research to see if this is feasible, but to advocate for the positioning of buildings in relation to open space to provide optimal sun. And I know like step backs and building heights are often things that are regulated through the zoning. But trying to think if there's, high level guidance we could provide that would set open space up to be more successful in a, dense and more urban area. But I think I need to think about that more as well.
Well, maybe if piece of like, if Allison maybe even has like an ask, because since she was there and presented and, we did this exercise of drawing out different spaces where we might like to see them for this particular project, different types of civic space. So things like different types of civic space could be in like a zoning, like you need to have at least one neighborhood park, civic space, or you need a dog park, or you need, so again, maybe just following up on the back end, and maybe Allison will have something that's like, oh, this is, since it's since right now this is a process that is being feedback is being taken. That's sort of where I'm like, oh, maybe this is an opportunity for the UFC to weigh in on. But yeah, I'd like to, Vanessa, just talk with you and Allie and Leah and see if this makes sense to be something that we could work together on. If not, no worries, but just wanted to make everyone aware that this is something that's pretty big that's going on. And again, the fact that it can be replicated in other areas is another reason why I wanted to bring it to people's attention.
Thanks for bringing this up. Yeah, it's definitely a huge, huge space and huge opportunity. All right. Should we jump into ongoing work updates? Starting with outreach, if it's okay. I had a great interaction recently. I actually was presenting for the Cambridge Committee on Public Planting, which is a newer group there, but seems like their purview, is it newer? Not new.
They've
I
been
thought it was like relatively a few
way
years,
longer
maybe.
than us. Mm-mm.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. I wonder
Like,
if their
It's the
public,
same thing I'm thinking of.
I don't know. I wonder if their purview has changed then,
Maybe.
because they now review any public planting projects, which I might be wrong, but my perception is that was relatively new, like in the past few years. But anyways, I was presenting there for my job, but they seemed very interesting, and it seems like their purview is very, very similar to ours. And so I stuck around and introduced myself to a few folks there, and met one of their co-chairs and was like, we should have a, annual Camberville plant symposium and just get together with that group and share lessons learned. Because I feel like if we doubled the amount of people who are thinking about this, we could have a lot of great takeaways. And that was my follow-up to what we talked about earlier in the meeting, talking about recommended planting in tree wells. I feel like they have more specific language in their Adopt a Tree program that I feel like we could hash out and hear from them on what their opinions are. And that's just one example of a lot of things that I think we could collaborate on. So I wanted to throw that out there as an idea. The other thing is that their meetings were hybrid. So most folks were in person, and then some people joined virtually. And it was just very nice to be all together in the same room. I know logistically it's very challenging, but I'm wondering if, do we think about doing once a year, we do an in-person meeting, maybe then once every 2 years, and think about a sequence that feels achievable and doesn't, prevent us from benefiting from the virtual setting, but finding moments to get together in person. So just throwing that out there. Yeah. Open to thoughts. Think that's exciting, or we love being able to join from anywhere.
I do like being able to join from anywhere, but also doing, 1 or 2 a year meeting in person sounds lovely. I was part of a hybrid meeting recently and it is very challenging. So I would not like to be in charge of running a hybrid meeting and trying to answer all your questions.
Not be the facilitator.
Yeah, so I think, one or the other is preferable. I like the idea of doing a few in person here and there.
Yeah, I wonder if we find, a time of year that sort of works for everyone and aim for one in person, or possibly have a Camberville symposium that's in person and get together. I guess we'd have to debate, do we go to Cambridge or do we invite them to Somerville? We have to find a city building that's right on the line, and then we can all meet in the middle. But
They might have better meeting space than we do, so.
it was a pretty small room that was very full.
Well, that's
But
true.
yeah, we can ruminate on that and think about it. Winter's probably not the right time to get us all to leave our houses anyways. Cool. And the other thing that I learned from actually doing research for that presentation, I sent this to Vanessa and I forgot to pull it up, but in the Cambridge Forestry Master Plan, they had a great graphic that explained their equivalent of the tree protection ordinance. And I would love, it was like very clear. And I'm trying to pull it up so I can show you guys, but I think we should make one for us. Well, I thought I could pull it up. Maybe I can't. One more try. Here we go. I found it. So it is a graphic. It was like deep in the appendix of their full report, but I was deep in the appendix of their full report. So I found this and I was like, oh, this is awesome. And it basically starts with, I want to remove a tree that would qualify for the tree protection ordinance. And it's a nice little flow chart that you end on the right as either receiving a permit or not having to do anything or paying money. And I know I'm always confused about, pulling up the spreadsheet and being like, which trees count for what thing? So I would, yeah, I'd be happy to offer to create something similar that would help guide folks, and then we could put it on the website, or you guys can share it with people. But yeah, I wanted to see if this is something that's like, is it okay for us to make this and then city can use it?
Absolutely. We
Cool.
might tweak it and make sure, well, obviously
Yeah, you have to
check it, but yeah,
fact check it.
yeah,
Cool.
that would be amazing.
All right. Yeah, maybe we can just like mark this one up, because I'm curious how the second piece is like, how different is theirs versus ours?
Pretty different.
Cool. Because yeah, I think their categories are large project, homeowner living in my house. I think we have other categories that would sort of start the tree.
Yeah, you can start, Leah, with our website we tried to make it sort of separated in logical ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll put a link to that particular website in the chat in a second, but maybe that
Right.
might help you think of the buckets.
Perfect.
So Leah, all this information came from being at that meeting?
So this came from the Cambridge Urban Forestry Master Plan. So they did a similar plan to what we had.
Okay.
And so when I was like preparing for that meeting, I scoured their master plan.
Oh,
And that's where I came across this. So it's, I think theirs was released after ours, or maybe right around the same time, a little bit before. But yeah, there's like a summary here. It goes through like each area of the city, the overarching goals. I think the bones are pretty similar to our urban forestry plan. But yeah, it was deep in one of these yeah, I think it was the technical report appendix, had some gems of information. So happy to share that. Oh, great. Thank you for posting that link. And great. All right, so those were my outreach items. Do we have any upcoming events? I know winter is usually a quieter time. Sometimes we go to the Winter Farmers Market, but Vanessa.
Can we get how did the last event go? Monster Mash.
Oh yeah, that was since our last meeting.
People love trees. Pedestrians were asking. I was there for part of it, and then I saw Tori there. We overlapped for a bit. Yeah, we definitely had some signups. People were curious about it. Nothing like particularly noteworthy or surprising, as that was the first event I've tabled for the committee, but people were asking questions. They were, yeah, curious to learn more. And we got some signups. I don't know, Tori, how you would describe your experience.
oh, it's great. It's one of my favorite times. Michael was dressed as a wizard, and it was Doris also came by, and who was there first? Why am I?
Is it
Michael, did
Jeff?
you open?
Yeah.
Okay.
Dorothy was there later, right?
Dorothy. Oh,
And
Dorothy.
Allie? I thought
Yes, not
Allie
Doris. Dorothy and Rob came, and so usually have tables next to each other, and somehow so we weren't next to each other, but we had a booth in between us. And
That's weird.
where Rob and I worked, we just got as many like seeds in bags and like handed them out to people and just touted the benefits of planting and all sorts of native plants, and then got people to sign up, and awareness around spotted lanternfly, and I think fun was had by all in general. Was the
Right.
Did you take any photos?
Yeah.
Of course not.
I'll have
It's
to check.
always so
forget.
hard to remember.
Please forget.
Yeah. Tori was dressed up as well.
Yeah,
Does anyone know who has the bag of stuff?
I do.
Okay, great.
It's right in this little room behind me. And I did get some printouts of the urban forestry, the pollinator action plan that I can put in the bag for future outreach. I'm wondering if it makes sense to try to get a table for the indoor farmers market. I don't know if we did that last year. Anyone remember?
I think we did it. I remember doing it like 2, maybe 3 years ago now, but we've definitely done it. I know I have the contact person. But I think we can probably, yeah, follow up on this over email and then confirm on the next meeting. But I guess to give other folks a preview, if you've been to the winter farmers market, if you go when they like direct you upstairs and when you first arrive, those two little tables trying to catch everyone before they try to go buy their vegetables are generally community tables. And so in the past, we've had one of those and we had making the seed balls and handing out information and just trying to, yeah, catch people going to the farmer's market. So we can reach out and see if they have any availability left for this year. And then if they do, we can try to table at it. So that would be great.
I was wondering if when we table, we're just kind of there to answer anyone's random questions, or if we should prompt people with like, ask us about these 6
Mhm.
main things. So that, because otherwise I think a lot of people might come up and they just don't even know kind of like what to prompt us with, or like they might be interested in a lot of conversations that we would be able to field. But and I know like I think Marion or we were like flipping through like how many materials we had. We were so surprised. We were like, wow, there's so many good things in here. It was almost overwhelming. But it might be nice to have like a mini table of contents so that if like it would jog people's thoughts, or if we have certain agendas, like at this time of year, we really want to pump people with this particular information. And at this time of year, we really want to get them interested in this.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
there's any like tips for being better at doing tabling. I'm kind of new to tabling, so.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think, yeah, typically I feel like I do that pretty ad hoc, but having some more guidance. And so that before each tabling session, we can be like, all right, these are our big goals, and provide people with information. Like I feel like when we do fall tabling, we hand out more information about leave the leaves. And when we do spring tabling, we talk more about, you know, what you want to plant. And so maybe winter is a time for planning and providing resources. Um, yeah, that's a great point. I feel like I don't have a ton of capacity to offer, you know, physical improvements, but I feel like we could work on maybe a better like banner. I feel like usually we like pack up some stuff, but having a clear poster that we could use for many years to come might be a good like tangible goal to come out of this.
I think that'd be a good idea. I had trouble finding our booth
Mm,
because like forestry was like the last word at the bottom of the cloth.
mhm.
So it's like if someone's like walking by really fast, they may not even know what we're there for. You know, there's like 50 other people to interact with. So I think like a more advertising or something would be helpful.
We do have some money available for the committee, so if I don't know how to get like a tablecloth made, but if anyone like has those skills and wants to work with me, I can order it and pay for it.
Yeah, that would be great.
Would we
Yeah.
want like messaging on it or just like the name, like urban forestry or something like that?
I think simple better, but like we have a certain not a logo, but like font we use on our memos,
Mhm.
maybe like that text.
Yeah, we have a little like tree thing I cobbled together.
Yeah, some sort of tree and big words. I don't know.
There definitely
Yeah.
needs to be a bigger tree and more visual, a much bigger representation of the tree part of the whole thing.
Be happy to do a little research or draft something here. Was the idea that we want cloth that would go on the table? So it essentially have like the information and stuff that drops down in front, or are you thinking like a sign or a banner or something?
I was thinking the tablecloth idea would be more long-term sustainable and easier to shove into a bag.
And I've designed those before, I just don't want to necessarily like overstep or, you know.
There's no overstepping on
Yeah,
this
and in
committee.
terms of a prompt, we could have like maybe a whiteboard or a chalkboard, and it's like, ask us about these topics.
Yeah, in the past we've
And
had
then,
a
these
big,
are like the 6 things we really want to talk about, or we have materials for.
yeah, I know in the past we had an easel board and we had Post-it notes and we had people like tell us about their favorite tree or some, some other prompt like that. But I feel like having something that is, yeah, more long-term would be nice, but also easily toteable. So finding something that's both of those things.
I feel like if we wanted to do something similar to the like easel with the post-it notes, we could do like a whiteboard and then people could like write things on the whiteboard and then you don't have to like throw out all the post-its and stuff. You just like erase it and for the next.
Yeah, I was saying if we want to use our little like header and footer as the base of a tablecloth, that could be develop our brand.
Very cute.
And then we could even include a QR code, but it's probably not super. We want the tablecloth to be like really lasting until people are like, what are QR codes? We live in the holographic world now.
Yeah.
Where did that footer come from?
I made it.
I think it's pretty.
Nice.
I mean, like that plus just Somerville Urban Forestry Committee and the
Mhm.
city seal would be plenty.
Yeah.
It's just
'Cause
that
right
we
now-
don't have it at all now. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
I love
I
the
had
trees
no
at the
idea it was
bottom.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can
The
I
one
can
thing
make
that
a
yeah.
Go
The
ahead.
one thing that would be nice is I love the general idea of it, but like to the extent that we could, and I have no idea if we could, if there were a way to find silhouettes of like 4 native trees or whatever that are like really cool ones that we love, that would be awesome. But if it's a lot of work, then it's not worth it. I just have no idea where one finds such a thing.
I've got resources. So yeah, I think the harder thing would be picking 4, but we could probably do a bunch if it like lined the whole bottom of the tablecloth. Like I'm thinking if it goes over the table and if you like the tree symbols take up most of it and then we have our name at the top. I think the top of the tablecloth will be mostly blank to put all of our stuff on it. But yeah, I think that'd be great.
I will just say I'm happy to order stuff. We do have a budget that's
Mhm.
limited, but some money. It does take a long time to get things ordered and paid for through the city, so we should do this
Mhm.
well in advance of any event we need it for. Just FYI.
Cool. Yeah, it'll probably be like once it happens, it'll be great. Very cool. All right. And in terms of the other ideas, also being conscious of our time. I think we're also pretty overdue for a little outreach get together. So I would either, I don't want to offer because I've offered in the past and then I forget. If someone wants to take initiative to make a outreach chat, that would be great. And we can talk about other ways to, um, you know, adapt our outreach strategy. While we think about that, the last thing I wanted to bring up during outreach is that I think Tori and I are meeting with a few people tomorrow, and I forget the topic. Some people from Groundwork Somerville, and thinking about youth engagement, and it sounds like they have an interesting project going on that we're going to learn more about. So we will report back. But I think the high level is more collaboration with Groundwork Somerville, and Tori, fill in for where I'm forgetting.
Yeah, no, so Lee and Renee, or Lee met with Kenzie last week. So this is involving getting Groundwork Somerville students planting trees, I think the idea is. And I don't know if this is actually a connection with the Myra grant. But Groundwork went silent for a little while. They ran out of funds, but they're back up and going again. And they're kind of rethinking, rethinking how they want to move forward. So yeah, anyway, we'll be meeting with Kenzie tomorrow and have some more information for you at the next meeting.
Great. All right, let's get to Allie's removal guidance. I pulled up this. Can zoom in.
Okay, so I took y'all's feedback from the last couple of meetings and I shortened this down to 2 pages.
Awesome.
I also condensed the space dedicated to removal and just sort of referenced, the Penn State Extension. And I also kind of put in front of that when it might be reasonable to pull out the weeds manually. I know that was a big concern. So that's on page 2. So really page 1 is like, what's bad about this tree of heaven, and then how to identify tree of heaven, and especially compared to some lookalikes. And so it's got a lot of pictures. And then the second page is, how would you go about removing the tree of heaven? With a little bit of like a timeline of when you need to do it, since timing is so critical. And then at the bottom, a little bit about the spotted lanternfly, because they're so closely connected.
I think it looks great. I think it's a huge improvement. It looks much better. I like it. The only thing I would say is, from a layout tip, if you reduce the space between the bullets and the text, it'll look nicer, and you don't need to indent the bullets, I think.
Let me see if I can do that. Okay, great.
I can also provide a little bit of graphic support if helpful.
Oh,
and we could
okay.
layer in our, if we want this to be a UFC thing, we can put our little header on it. And
Yeah, I was wondering if we should brand it.
yeah, we made it. Take ownership. But yeah, this is a ton of work. Thank you so much for doing this. I think it looks really digestible. And then I love that it gives you more resources. So it's like an intro and then routes you to the most important things.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that I don't want people doing much outside of the season where it's best to do it. So I think it'd be good if like we get that list of, these are the places where we can blast out notifications. That it might be good to release this in like a February or a March timeframe. Maybe February is even a little too early, but that might be when people start to think about landscaping, realize that they have this, or just start to kind of realize that they're like losing the fight to it in their own yard.
Yeah, it seems like a
One other
good.
thing I was wondering was, where's my list of I was wondering, yeah, so I know we talked about like where to publish things. That was a good part of the discussion earlier on this call. I'm wondering, would like putting this under doors be too aggressive? It's like if you noticed a property was growing some trees of heaven, would it be reasonable to like slide this into their mailbox?
I think that that would be all right. You can't put anything that doesn't go through the actual USPS into a mailbox. So
Okay,
don't do
good
the
to know.
mailbox, but like roll it up and put it in the doorknob, or like my tree planting notices I tape onto the door, but that might be a little aggressive. Think about like what people do with campaigns. I would do stuff like that. So like
Okay,
maybe tuck it into the door if you can, or roll it into like a handle. Sometimes it's hard to leave things, or stick it in the fence, maybe. It sort of depends on the property, but I think it could be
Okay.
useful. People might get mad, but you won't be there to know, so it'll be fine.
Okay. I was also wondering, there's a tree growing near me. It's a street tree, and there is a tree of heaven growing in the little street well with it. So how could that be removed? Like if I called 311 about it, is that something 311 would do something about? It's gotten so big that I worry about how to get rid of all of the roots. It's not clear to me whether it's just sprouted on its own this year, or if it comes from an abandoned property kind of across the street that has a lot. If that's the case, like the roots go really far, we're not going to be able to tackle.
Well, the city has a policy not to use pesticides, so the best we would do, which is what we would do, is just cut it down. Probably, or try to pull it and cut it down, but usually for tree well maintenance requests, they go to the highway department, who knows nothing about plants, and they would just cut it, everything in the well, except the tree. They would probably leave the tree. So they're, yeah,
Right.
we can share this information with them, but they won't have the time and capacity to do anything but try to pull it at best, and more likely just cut it.
Okay, so that would actually not be a good idea right now to report it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it depends, I guess.
Okay.
If you send the address to Trees Alley, Rackham Lake, and I can think about it a little bit more, but yeah.
Okay,
this is the
I can
one-off
do that.
situation. Okay.
Okay. Thanks so much for the feedback, everyone.
So-
I'll definitely take you up on help with graphics, Leah.
Yeah, definitely.
So this is in Google Docs right now.
Perfect. Yeah, if you
It's
want to
in
just make
it's in
me
my
a,
Google Drive, as I think that's how we're supposed to start things until they're more official.
yeah,
So I can
yeah,
grant you edit access, or
perfect. Yeah, if it's
okay.
just two of us, that's fine. Don't share it to the
Okay.
whole group, but yeah, if it's just us, it can be an editor as well. And then maybe, or sorry, Tori, it looked like you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because what I remember, one bits of feedback was whether or not we felt comfortable as a committee recommending people to use poison herbicides. From what I'm remembering, our last conversation, that was something we hadn't decided on. And I just want to make sure that we're not voting on this tonight, right? I'm guessing.
Yeah, it seems like if we have, if the ideal time that we want to put it out is February, we'll have another meeting or two to keep
Yeah,
reviewing and we can, work on graphic stuff. But I think, yeah, content.
I mean, there's no other way to kill this beast. There's just, unfortunately, but I just want us to think about, what it means
Mhm.
when we have our stamp on this. Like, is it something we really got to make sure that the herbicide shopping list, or maybe the shopping list is like the, PPE gear is the very first thing, so just want to make sure we're okay with guiding people on using pesticides, because I don't know if the recommendation is like making sure people take training, or yeah, so I don't know. I'm like, I recognize all the work that went into this, and all the work that went into the previous version of this. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, and I want us to think on it too.
Yeah, the PPE is something I don't even know if that's recommended. From the sources I've looked at, I've just been like adding it because I am like worried about it. I think you should probably follow the recommendations from the herbicide you buy. So like you should read the back of it. So maybe that's one more of an important tip, to read the guidance that comes with what you buy.
I mean, but we're recommending in this document a very specific poison. So if we're doing that, no, glyphosate or glyphosate, however you say it. So we're saying either or. Just want to be cautious if we're recommending specifically 2 different types of herbicide. So if we're doing that, like, I just want to be cautious. So maybe Leah and Allison, as you're reworking this, or yeah, like if it, like today, if I had to like vote on this, I would, yeah, I'm not sure. I need to think on this, but I guess I want all of us to think on what this means when we're recommending herbicide. Again, I recognize, I don't know another way to do it. I don't know another way to get rid of knotweed. So, yeah, just.
I need to review back in our notes, but did we already talk about, and the fact that Vanessa just said this in the last comment, that the city doesn't apply herbicide? Is there any conflict with us recommending something that the city itself does not? I don't know if it's a matter of they don't do it, not that they don't recommend it. It's just not a city practice.
I don't know the ins and outs of the decision, but we don't not let people use herbicides in the city. So I don't see any conflict in that regards. It's just the policy, I think, to avoid any outcry, I suppose, of using herbicides too much, or when to use it. It's just better to just not use it at all on city property. That's my understanding, but
it might bring up a little bit, like if someone does this and something were to go, like, if we're putting this out with our name on it, are we liable in any way? This gets into stuff I really don't know about. If someone's like, well, UFC told me to do it.
maybe we can like tweak some of the wording a little bit, like possible herbicide shopping list or something, like make it a little more hand wavy so that there's less, you told me to. No, we just said, here's an example of one or something. I'm not a lawyer, so that may not fly. I don't know. But I will recognize that this is sort of what I was thinking and recommended to Allie to do last time we talked about it, like take out all the details about how to apply the herbicide, but just point to the pen extension. And as I recall, the shopping list is something, Ally, you put together because you were finding it really confusing. So it was like an extra resource for people to have that they couldn't easily find somewhere else. So I appreciate what you've done here. And, you know, if we need to think about the herbicide thing somewhere, that's fine. Or, yeah, I don't know what else to say, but that's, yeah, seems decent to me. And like, if there's no other solution, maybe we have to say even less if that's what that's what the group feels. But you know, if there's no other solution and we're trying to help people get rid of tree of heaven, I don't know how to totally avoid talking about herbicide.
Yeah, I wonder if there's some language nuance, like instead of saying herbicide is needed, like herbicide is often recommended when these scenarios, so that it's not something that we're saying we necessarily recommend, but this is like a summary of, it's a summary of research, because we're obviously not the scientists writing these things, but we're aggregating information.
If we're, I don't know that we want to wordsmith this now, but or even leave out the word recommended, that like one of the few known ways to kill is with herbicides. So we're not even using the word recommend.
Yeah,
I
I
still
wonder
think the
if,
biggest question is if, sorry, I still think the biggest question is if the city's comfortable like referencing herbicide use in like a city branded thing, regardless of the word smithing around it. And I
Would
don't
it be
have a
helpful to
perspective on
ask like
that.
a city lawyer? Maybe there's like a disclaimer they would want to
good
include.
idea.
Yeah, I can send it to the legal team. Since we don't have an official, it's not even like a written policy, so I really think it should be fine, but I'll double check.
Awesome, thank you.
I can make a couple of those little tweaks just to soften it a little bit. And then the link that I gave you would definitely work for the attorney as well.
Okay.
I mean, part of me wonders, like, oh gosh, encouraging people to get their license, their invasive, or their applicator's license, or hire licensed applicator.
Oh, that's interesting. I know
Yeah.
someone in Newton that is part of invasive species removal, and to do it on city property, she did have to get like a herbicide license. But this would be more about doing it in your own property. So, you know, it's not like you have to, when you go to Home Depot and buy herbicide, they have to check whether you have a
Right.
license or not.
Right.
Maybe people shouldn't be doing this in public property. Should be something else that we should be recommending. You know, like, I don't think someone should take this and just run down the bike path. Or go to their neighbor's yard without, you know, them wanting perhaps.
For me, I guess on just reacting to as it is, I just want, like with any herbicide method, like lots of like bold or caution, like just make sure you've done your homework, consult someone who's licensed or done this before. And just like with any herbicide method, that sort of like that goes to the top. And I don't know if it's like herbicide shopping list versus like removal shopping list, or anyway, just wanting to highlight the need for protective gear, because this is it's really dangerous chemical. So I just wouldn't want to be like, oh, you know, shopping list, you can just kind of like go to the store. I mean, you can go to the store and just get it. So, but I want it to, like, this is perhaps something we shouldn't be having in the store. So I don't want to minimize that. It's like, yeah, just, so yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no,
You know.
I understand the hesitation personally. Um,
I think it's more
I
like
think all the
less than
suggestions are good.
less than shopping list is more like note, things to know about herbicides or something like that, because that's like really what it is. It's like that there's different kinds and that you must wear PPE. I mean, like the flip side of this, like I understand, and I'm a big hater of herbicides myself, but like the alternative to this is people pulling things out, in some cases accidentally stimulating the hell out of these.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes Roundup is your friend.
All right, well, I think we still have some things to ruminate on, and everyone has this link, so everyone can sort of look it over. We can make some of these tweaks and work on some formatting stuff and run it through some legal legal chains. And then I think ideally either at our next meeting or in January we vote on it. So if everyone can do their study and thoughts, and I think between now and then you're also, I think, would be welcome to send Allie other comments. I believe that is fine. So that we can aggregate those and get the resources out there. All right, I'm gonna bring us back. We still have a few more things to get through. I'm gonna suggest we skip our question answering for tonight. That's all right. And also skip the job postings and RFPs. I scanned it and didn't see anything super critical. I know we received the September, or sorry, is there any other ongoing work updates anyone wants to cover?
So I put in greening the green line because I want this we do have to figure out our next steps. Just quick broad strokes. The GLX said they were going to do a thing and they didn't do it, which was to spray all of the slopes with a native seed mix. And I don't see any native grasses. I don't see any native flowers. I don't see anything. So it's like they made a mistake. Do they have to make good by the deliverables on their contract? So that's one question I have. Vanessa, I sent you some questions at the end of last meeting regarding trying to get I sent a few questions on to ask Viola, but I'm going to I met with the mayor and I'd love to I'll follow up with you with some more questions that hopefully we can have somebody from the city come in to talk about, again, the questions of, do they need to fix what they messed up on? And then the question is, what's the handoff going to look like? So that's that's what I hope we can work on for next meeting.
Related to, go ahead.
Sorry, Marion. I did get your questions and I meant to get answers to them, but I did not. So I will. It's on my list to do on Monday, since
Okay.
I did not get time to do it this.
No, I meant to follow up on it and I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, it's cool.
But yeah, I'd like to maybe just talk with you next week about sort of like
Sure.
what I heard, with just want to debrief you on a few things. So
That'll be great. Thanks.
Okay.
Related to that, I was going to say, like, I noticed, like, for example, there were these really pretty black-eyed Susans on a stretch on the path right after it crosses Medford Street, and they were mowed down. Basically everything that was alive along that path was systematically mowed down at the end of the season. And I understand on one hand, on the other hand, it seemed like there was no preferential treatment given to anything that might be desirable.
I'm sure whoever mowed it didn't know what they were mowing or not mowing. They didn't.
This is definitely going to be a long range plan. And as the handoff happens, one thing I'm thinking is that not to volunteer ourselves, but as community comes together to try to figure this out, that we're going to need to have a place that it needs to be discussed publicly, and that we might be a potential structure. But we should definitely be aware of the next steps, because that's such a huge, the felling of all those trees on the Green Line was one of the impetuses for us to reform as a committee. So yeah, so that's one of my big hopes for next year for this committee.
All right, we are at time. Do we want to extend for a minute to approve September minutes, or do folks have to hop off right now? In which case we can approve at the next meeting.
I can say for 1 minute, it's just approved minutes.
All right, I will move to approve the September. We did not receive the October yet, right? So approve the September minutes, and then we can do a roll call vote. So Breck, or sorry, any concerns, and do we need a second?
Second.
All right, Marion seconds. Are there any concerns with the minutes or any edits? Now I'm good to roll call. Did I miss anything, Vanessa? Great. All right, Breck,
Approve.
Kala,
Approve.
myself, Leah, approve. Michael,
Approve.
Marion,
Approve.
Tori, and Vanessa.
Approve.
And sorry to skip over you, Allie, but we appreciate that you're here.
No worries.
All right.
And
All right. Any last things? It was great to see everybody. Motion to adjourn. Probably doesn't need a second.
Second, just in case.
Second, just in case. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Good night, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
night.